feeling that I deserve to be heard, that I deserve to simply exist, taking up space, and feeling that I deserve to take up space. It's a constant struggle for someone like me who is trans, who's a woman, who is a trans woman, who is a lesbian trans woman. It's complicated and it can be disheartening and exhausting. I also want to say this won't be the happiest of videos. This is something that's been on my mind and on my heart for a long time. Something that I feel like I'm starting to get the words to describe. Shout out to my wonderful therapist. So what does it mean to take up space? What a great question. Essentially, recognizing that you have a right to exist. Finding the strength to believe in yourself, to believe that you, your voice, and your actions, they're all valid. They're all worthy of being heard, worthy of being experienced. It's fucking hard to take up space if you're someone who is constantly invalidated and constantly told it's wrong to be who you are. Like many of you, I was told, sometimes directly, sometimes indirectly, that being girly was bad because I was born a boy. I wasn't allowed to be something that went outside of those boyish, masculine expectations. I essentially learned to feel guilt and shame. You know, everyone's telling me that I'm wrong, so hey, I'm gonna believe it after a while, and then I'm gonna feel like I have to push this part away from me because it's not supposed to be here. But I bring that up because that guilt and shame, that's not naturally there. That's not there from day one. That's put there. That's something I learned. That's something we learn. It was something that other people taught me to believe. I internalized their voices and their beliefs and eventually convinced myself to also believe it. Even though it was harmful, I felt there was less harm in the long run with trying to repress that. And as we know, that doesn't work. At least it does not work in the long run. The number of times I was told I couldn't say silly things like the word cute. The times that these messages came from people like my dad or close friends. So I must trust this because I trust this person. I'm not allowed to say that word. If this person I trust says I'm not allowed to say it, I'm not allowed to say it. They must know. And I know these people didn't mean to cause me any harm, but it did, and it still does. Thinking of all the countless times that I was picked on and bullied throughout elementary school, middle school, high school, college. Why do you have so many friends that are girls? Why are you crying? Why are you upset? Why are you expressing emotions? Why are you not acting tough? Why are you not manning up? Why don't you play sports with the rest of the boys? Why don't you hang out with the boys? Why don't you fit in? I don't know, that's a great question. Why don't I fit in? Maybe because I don't fit into the role you're trying to force me into. It's easier to be silent after a while, to be in the background from that point on. Trying to be myself, it wasn't going to be respected. It wasn't going to be listened to. It got to a point where sometimes it felt better to get no attention, to be unknown, to just be there, but not really be there. That felt better than to get attention that had a strong risk of negative reaction. It was easier to be silent and to try to just fizzle away. It took that depression that kept growing and growing and growing for me to realize that something has to change, because I was living my life on someone else's terms. I was living someone else's life. And I know this is something I've talked about many times before, and something that I think many of you can relate to. I was keeping myself quiet and small because it helped keep other people comfortable. But if I'm working so hard to make everybody else comfortable, everybody but myself, if I'm pleasing others and making myself miserable in the process, what the fuck is the point? What am I doing? And it took years to realize that. And I probably realized it well before I started transitioning, but it took so much longer to realize that I could change that I could try to change that. I like to think things like, I am deserving of love. I deserve to exist. People appreciate that I exist. People love that I exist. And some days I do. But some days, none of those things feel true to me. Is it the depression talking? The gender dysphoria? The exhaustion? All those hurtful beliefs that I've internalized throughout the years? The hurtful beliefs that are still thrown out into the world, targeting people like me, targeting people like many of you watching. It's probably a good mix of all the above, and the severity of each depends on the situation, but it's probably at least a few, if not all of those on any given occasion. And this is one of the things I've been working on in therapy, realizing that it's hard work to unlearn this damage, that, all of this invalidation. It's traumatic in a sense, and it creates ripple effects and repercussions, and it kind of just stains the heart and mind. And, this damage doesn't just easily go away. This damage of constantly living in a transphobic society, it's caused a lot of damage to me. It's caused a lot of damage to so many people. Many of you have probably experienced this and probably continue to experience this, or at the very least, you probably know multiple people that do. It's not to say that transitioning hasn't helped. Social and medical transitioning, living my life as me, because absolutely that has helped. But there's only so much that transitioning alone can do when that damage is so deeply ingrained and so deeply learned. Like, talking to myself in a negative way it's like a learned habit. Like I said, there's only so many times that you can hear messages before you start to believe them. It's only so many times that people can say bad things to me that I start to believe them. And of course, the way so many of our minds are wired, the negative beliefs stick a lot more easily than the positive beliefs. And I don't mean for this to sound hopeless. That's not the intention here. Like I said, I wanted to share a bit of my experience, share a bit of my pain, try to be vulnerable, try to show, not that I think anybody's doubting this, but just to show the person on the other side of the screen is human too, experiences struggles, I'm flawed. Because I know people can easily forget that while watching people on YouTube, watching people through a computer, through a TV screen, through a phone screen, forgetting that they have whole lives outside of all of that, just like anybody else. And I wish I had like an easy answer to these struggles, at least beyond the whole fake it till you make it bullshit. And, that can work to an extent, but you have to believe it at a point. You have to believe the positivity at a point for it to really settle in. I can say that having more insight and awareness into what I'm experiencing has certainly helped. It's kind of this idea of you have to identify the problem to be able to address the problem. And sometimes identifying the problem can take a very long time because of denial and repression, and then the difficulty of accepting that this is what's happening. Finding that source of pain and being able to label it can be so powerful. Not just in this context, but any context. It certainly helps. Taking that perspective to try to remind myself that these thoughts, they don't define who I am holistically. They don't define who I am as a whole person. Reminding myself of that helps. I have these thoughts, and these thoughts clearly do have an impact, but I'm so much more than just the thoughts that I have. I'm so much more than just those negative thoughts that I've internalized, that were essentially placed there and weren't mine to begin with. Like, please, Can I give those away? Can I throw them away and set them on fire? Because I don't want to give those to anybody else. It's really important to realize that a lot of these negative beliefs we have, probably all of these negative beliefs that we hold about ourselves, they were put there by somebody else. We internalized somebody else's harm and pain that they put out into the world and unfairly directed towards us. And then we internalized that pain and continue to experience that cycle of pain. It's that whole wonderful thing of internalized transphobia. Super fucking great. Am I right? I'm trying to remind myself as much as I can that I'm worthy and I'm valid. The things that I want all of you to believe as well. Because I think we all deserve to believe that. We all deserve to experience that and to live a life where that, it is true, but we deserve to live a life where we believe it to be true also.